May 13th meeting to order, and we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first order of business, approval of minutes for 4/8/15. I read them and reviewed them and have no issues.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Small project, NACC 141-242 Dale Street.
A small project proposal for a deck. The deck actually exceeds 300 square feet, but only 100 square feet of the deck is actually in jurisdiction. So that being said, we actually have a better plan because this applicant is going to be doing a full-blown NOI for a pool. But that is not in front of you at the moment. But that being said, I can show you the survey. So you can see the 20 by 29 foot deck, and the 100-foot line kind of runs through the very top portion of it, right about where those red stairs are. The proposed lower deck and the pool are the later filing, but the proposed deck, which is over an existing patio, goes to from 29 over 20 and down 10. Can everybody see that? With only just the very sort of northern portion actually in your jurisdiction. It's approximately 95 feet from the wetland. I have a few photos of the site. And the applicants are here this evening. Again, you can see the sort of larger site plan.
Any questions, Al?
I have no questions.
Doug?
No questions.
Jen, is this a watershed special permit?
It will be.
It will be, and so,
So we now have a new town planner, so she has just seen this plan, but Jean Enright and I spoke, she was acting town planner, about this prior to that, and she said, and I had put a note in there, but she had said that they would sign off on this administratively and with conditions, but that the larger plan will be reviewed under a watershed special permit, and the larger plan will be reviewed by us under an NOI.
thank you.
Yeah, I guess my only question is more of a caution. This is a small project, and in my mind, it's easily approvable under a, Section 4.4A. But if there's any changes on the subsequent NOI and review by the Conservation and Planning Board, you might not want the deck project that you're proposing. Now, you might want to take that risk. It might work out timing-wise for you, but if something changes on that eventual project, it could put you it could cost you money. So it's just a caution. I think it's very approvable for a small project, but I just offer that point of caution to you.
They intend to file this week, so it'll be a quick.
Yep.
It's also in endangered species habitat, should be exempt, but sometimes pools get a little funky. This being an above ground, I don't think so much. Sometimes the in-grounds and turtles and things, but
Okay.
and other than that, I don't don't see a lot of concern.
Have no other questions.
What's the advantage? I have no problem with the application. What's the advantage to doing a small project now with an NOI coming in behind it?
So the watershed special permit application requires 2 different weeks of notification, so it's likely a month before they'll be on the planning board agenda. They'd like to have a deck for the summer. They might not likely have a pool for the summer, but they'd like to have a deck.
Got it. Okay, thanks.
The only question I have is where the stockpile's going to be, but we can address that later.
Not for this, there won't be a.
Right. Okay. Motion?
I move that we consider the application, a section 4.4, letter A, an applicable small project under that section.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
So secondly, then I move that we approve the application as submitted.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. So that's
That
going
would
to be
be
a
with pre and post construction.
pre and post.
I'm sorry, post-construction inspection, I think I recommended, sorry.
Okay. All set. Thank you. Next one is NACC 142, 296 Raleigh Tavern.
So 296 Raleigh Tavern is a septic system replacement with the entire new system being outside of jurisdiction, but the crushing and filling of the pump tanks being in jurisdiction. And some pretty steep slopes on the site. That being said, I think it can be done as a small project, but I do think it should require some erosion control between the work, and the, oh, that's Raleigh. So as you can see, the entire new system is outside the 100. Inside the 100 is just the crushing and filling of the tanks.
Any questions, Al?
So the scope of work that we're being asked to approve is just crush and fill? No other excavation of any kind,
Nope.
stockpiling or anything like that?
No access, nothing.
Okay, all right, I'm good.
No, the only question I have is what you've got in the proposed detail and abandonment sequence in your cover letter, that you're going to remove the tank covers. And normally septic tanks have small round covers, and that's it. Are you going to take the entire concrete top of the tank off?
I don't know if there's anyone here for, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sure they don't know. This is Merrimack Engineering is the filer.
Merrimack and Todd Basin's going to actually do the work. I believe they're going to just fill it with sand.
Well, it's filling it in, I don't see a problem, but they, in their proposal, they're going to go in and they're going to knock some holes in the bottom, some at least 12-inch diameter holes in the bottom and then in the sides of the tank. And then normally, if you had, there's 3 covers on the top of a tank, one in the middle and one on each end. And those are small, so how is somebody going to get down inside the tank to make those holes and all that, unless they pull the entire cover off the top of the tank?
No, they can get in the pump. That's,
They can get into a pump it, but how's somebody going to get down inside?
no, I'm telling you, a human being can get inside a septic tank because I had to hire a guy to go in and put a new baffle in my tank. And he put on a hazmat suit with a scuba setup, and he put a ladder, and he went right down in the damn thing, and he replaced the baffle. I couldn't believe my eyes, but he went right in there.
I'll probably just crush the top cover and leave the
I
excavator.
hope you tipped them well.
You know,
They could, I mean,
I wasn't doing the
all
work, so.
stuff, that's one thing they could do.
Yeah, they're not
At
gonna
least the
lift,
ones in mine, I don't see, I couldn't get down.
they're not gonna lift it up, they're gonna crush the
Yeah,
top.
How big's the tank? How big's the tank? It's 1,000 gallon?
They're just gonna crush it with an excavator.
Do we know?
That'll be the end.
If it's a 1,000-gallon tank, the cover will be adequate for the guy to get in, because that's mine is 1,000-gallon.
I'll say what
Speed.
mine is 1,000 gallon.
They're gonna do it
I'll pull the
speedy.
cover off, I can't get down.
They're gonna crush the cover with an
small.
excavator. and just
Okay,
backfill.
well, I guess we have to figure that they're either gonna go in the existing hole or they're gonna make a hole.
They're gonna make a hole.
They're gonna make a hole, and that's, I mean, they gotta get in.
They're gonna crush that cover with the excavator once we,
Yeah. Make a hole.
Take the whole thing out altogether to get to that.
Either way, it's a contained project, right?
Yep.
I mean, either way, regardless
Yeah,
of
I know
how they,
that.
regardless of how they do it, the work is contained within the perimeter of the tank.
right.
So,
Okay. Any more questions? Motion?
we at that stage already? Okay.
Yeah, how much more questions?
No more questions.
All right.
Let's move on. I move that we consider this project to be a section 4.4, letter L, other similar projects of minimal impact as determined by this commission.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
So accordingly, I move that we approve the project as drafted.
With erosion control and pre and post construction.
Absolutely pre.
And do you want a pre-construction?
Yes.
Yep,
and a
pre and
pre-con-
post.
Okay,
So we know what they're doing.
so as amended.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
We'll come out before the work starts and after the work is finished. Right, and so we're asking that you take, you put some kind of erosion control between them doing this work. So your septic system is raised, so somewhere below that, they would put like a silt sock or a tube of some kind to keep anything from moving beyond that area. And we'd come out and inspect that in the beginning. They'd do the work, you loam and seed it, and when the grass is growing, you give us a call.
Yeah, just have your contractor contact the administrator before they start.
We work with Merrimack, they know the deal.
And they know the contractor's Bateson, so. Okay, thank you. Well set?
Thank you.
What's the next one?
The next one, can you, I don't have an abutters list here, can you check the abutters list, please?
Yep,
And look for Pacific Realty Trust, and if it's on there, that's me.
all right, checking it out.
I think I'm in 300 feet of this.
I'm drawing a blank.
Yep, Pacific Realty Trust, 72 Foster. That'd be
Okay, so
you.
I'm going to recuse and sit in the back and just listen.
Okay. Fort- 48 Huckleberry Lane.
I have 3 copies.
Pursuant to the authority of the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, as amended in the North Andover Wetland Protection Bylaw, the North Andover Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, May 13th, 2015, at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Meeting Room, second floor, located at 120 Main Street, North Andover, Mass., for the filing of a request for determination of applicability by applicant Naraja Shobadoni to alter land at 48 Huckleberry Lane, map 65, parcel 210, North Andover, Mass., for the purpose of construction of a deck and stairs within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. Plans are available at the Conservation Office, 1600 Osgood Street, Suite 2035, by Louis Napoli, Chairman.
Thank you, Jeff.
So this is a deck rebuild. It's not being rebuilt in exactly the same configuration, and there's also a patio proposed underneath. That's why it's an RDA, not a small project. That being said, it's about 6 inches farther from the wetland than was previously constructed. The wetland being down a constructed embankment, retaining wall, stone retaining wall. Outside of the 50-foot no-build zone, to be on more solid footings this time than were previously constructed. And the patio is to be pavers. The deck has already been removed due to safety concerns, but not the actual.
It's like on this side. The sketch.
Are you looking at the plans, Doug?
Yeah, it's different from the pictures. What's shown in the picture for a full deck is not what's going to be rebuilt.
No, that's why it's an RDA.
That's the
not-
existing one, right?
Right,
That's what's been torn down.
correct.
But you indicated earlier that they were going to rebuild the deck in the same footprint.
But not in the same configuration. The stairs are different.
Well, I understood what you said to be the same configuration, so.
Oh, sorry,
stand
not the same
corrected.
configuration, yeah. I have, if anyone else would like to see that.
Any more questions? You're up first. I know what you're saying. Deck's going up.
I have no more.
The stairs are on the opposite side now.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a high deck.
Let's see, this one,
Is that the-
Okay, so you didn't see those. I didn't have that. Okay, yeah, okay.
More than 50.
And I'm not climbing those stairs.
60.
That is
I think it looks a
high
lot
deck.
higher in that rendering than it actually is.
I know, there's some serious stairs there.
It's a second-story deck.
Yeah. Fall off that one, it's gonna hurt. Any questions, Deb? No questions. Jack?
No questions.
Okay, motion?
I move that we issue a -3 determination for 48 Huckleberry Lane with conditions for pre- and post-work inspection and inspection of erosion control. Where would that erosion control be? 25?
Just beyond the limit of work, there's
50
a
feet.
distinct drop. It would be before the drop. It's somewhere in the mowed lawn. It doesn't really matter where. I'm just thinking if they're going to excavate for a patio and install pavers, they should probably have a line of silt sock out there, just in case.
40 feet setback from the wetland?
Just literally beyond the edge of work. It's a fairly, small grassed area, and then the thing dives down to the wetland. Anywhere between that retaining wall and the work is going to be fine.
Do you want
We'll work with the contractor. I've already written the order,
you'd rather determine that in the field?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. So, motion made.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. See ya. Next one is 52 North Cross Road.
Sorry for the pronunciation of the name. So you're reading this one too?
Pursuant to the authority of the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40 is amended, and the North Andover Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the North Andover Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, May 13, 2015, at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Meeting Room, second floor, located at 120 Main Street, North Andover, Mass., for the filing of a request for determination of applicability by Kenneth Martin to alter land at 52 North Cross Road, map 38, parcel 184, North Andover, Mass., for the purpose of construction of a screen porch within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland and riverfront area. Plans are available at the Conservation Office, 1600 Osgood Street, Suite 2035, by Louis Napoli, Chairman, NACC.
Thank you, Deb.
Okay, this is for a sunroom, a and a deck. That being said, the deck, is already under construction. There was some confusion about a prior septic plan that Heidi reviewed for this and the new delineation. So she had already signed off on the deck based on a prior plan, but the wetland is now closer. Still not enough to cause any problem with the proposed green porch, but the deck is already under construction, and you can see that in the photos I've given you. That said, there's no issues with the deck construction. There's no erosion or any concern for anything impacting. This is exempt under the Rivers Protection Act, but is jurisdictional under, as it is an enclosed area under both the Wetlands Protection Act and the bylaw to buffer zone. They propose erosion control, so all that should really be needed is pre- and post-construction inspection.
Jen, is there a, this is the first floor porch? Is that correct? I haven't seen it. Okay.
Who delineated the wetland line?
Bill Manuel, I believe.
When?
This spring. Heidi reviewed it this spring. I reviewed it again this week.
This year's?
There's a sewer easement that actually crosses that wetland line. Makes things a little funky. Can't really auger within the sewer easement to get soils, so the line is probably even a little higher than you would place it based on vegetation, and you really can't get soils, so I'd say it's good.
Nothing vernal or ephemeral in the area?
No, riverfront, so it's full-blown stream.
Full-blown
I think it's
It's Mosquito.
It's a Mosquito Brook?
Yeah. Okay, I'm all set.
No questions.
Yep.
All set.
Yep. Jen?
We've got an existing shed between 25-foot setback and 50-foot setback. Is that, I don't remember, are sheds
The pool has
considered structures?
has a building permit sign-off from one of your former agents. It's now past the time anyone could go back to.
What year was that?
That would be
Sign off?
I believe it's Mr. Doucette sign-off, but, and the,
1990?
Wow.
I think it's a little later. 96? I don't know, but it's beyond the time of pursuing anything.
Still just curious.
Right. We were very curious. We did a lot of investigation. Well, I'm trying to, again, the wetland line was different, and the sewer easement, I think, might have changed things a little. So what you see as the wetland line right now was not the wetland line back then, but it's a lot of speculation, and we definitely did the research to confirm that there's no existing violation, even there was a prior violation likely.
The pool looks like it just skirts the 50, so I can see, where a slight change in the line might have caused it to happen where it was permitted properly.
But you didn't permit it, so it was just signed off on a building permit. Something about a sewer easement.
Okay, I guess my question is the shed
Everything's
legal?
been there for a long time.
Shed's not legal by the bylaw.
It's not legal, but it's not a violation to these particular owners. They've owned it for more than 3 years, so it's a grandfathered. And when it was installed, it was likely not in the 15.
I mean, I don't know what you guys think, but there's a place for it, like, just to the north of that,
Yeah.
of that bituminous concrete surface.
I think what Jen's saying it's past the time. Is that what I'm getting?
Well, I mean, you can, this isn't particularly a project that would inspire mitigation, so to speak, but, I mean, it's always at your discretion that things that
How old is the shed?
I'm thinking 96.
It's old. We looked up the building permits. These things were signed off on. They're not necessarily
Just can't
things that...
remember what year it was.
Donna thinks 96. I know it was within... No, it's later than that, because I want to say, it doesn't appear in the 1990 historic aerials, but it appears in the 2001, so I want to say it's around 2000.
This is an IDA, so we're hard pressed to put conditions on an IDA. However, I think we can put 3.
The three conditions.
So, since it's an old shed, Jack, what about finding a way to memorialize a note attached here too, that the shed cannot be replaced in its current location? Because I understand what Jen's saying, the age of the permit and the circumstances surrounding the permit kind of doesn't really make it fair game.
It seems to me if they had to replace the shed, they'd have to come before us.
Well, that's, I guess, what I'm saying,
At
but
this point in time is,
but particularly if you take the time and trouble to add a note to the filing with respect to replacement of it. If it's an old shed, if it was built in the 90s, it's running out of life, unless it's a really good...
I mean, I don't want to prolong this hearing. I think, you know, the fact that it's there within the 25 and 50, it is against the letter of our bylaw, and it is riverfront. Mosquito Brook is a river in North Andover, so it is, you know, it's got the heightened level of protection. I think it's prudent for us to ask them to move the shed as part of this project, and I'll just leave it at that. That's my only argument. No more.
How do you feel?
Well,
I did give us a copy of the prior as-built plan where you can see that the wetland line it doesn't give a lot of the wetland line, but it's further away. Like to this point of the house would have been 100 feet, whereas now 100 feet is beyond that septic system. 100 feet before was here. So it wouldn't have been potentially, I mean, you can't really tell, but the wetland line was different.
address the issue of that.
Yep.
So
yeah.
Looks
now
like
the
it might have
100
been
foot
on
of the
50.
wetland line goes out to here on the septic system.
Yeah.
Previously, it was 105 feet to here.
So,
It was a different wetland line.
there's a
So they made.
That's why it wasn't reviewed.
Right.
Well, I understand your concerns, Jack, but I tend to agree with Al. I think we'd probably destroy the thing if they moved it. It'd probably cause more disturbance, but I think if we put in the order that if it's, once it deteriorates, it's over, it's done. The bituminous area, I don't understand. What was there before that one? The basketball
The
court?
sport court type thing that's back there wouldn't have required a building permit, so it was likely done when the pool was done, but wouldn't have been reviewed and signed off under the building permit process. It's not new.
So we have to,
That said, there's the existing yard, then there's vegetation, then there's the sewer easement, then there's the wetland, and then there's the brook. It's not really a situation where any of this stuff is encroaching into the wetland.
so the consensus is,
I don't know if you have a consensus, but, and I 100% understand Jack's point. His point is well taken. But I'm kind of, it's rare that I do this, but I'm leaning in the interest of just flagging it rather than requiring a move. I recognize the age of the project. And
sure we're feeling the shed. say you have the opinion to leave it and document it?
Yeah, I have no problem with that, document it now, but I wouldn't require removing it or trying to move it at this point.
So, yeah, you're in favor of flagging it?
Yeah, just flag it. Let them know that if it has to be replaced, then they're gonna have to come to the commission, and it's gonna have to be moved from
Well, yeah, that,
location.
yeah. So it sounds like that's the consensus. Sorry, I just feel that
It's okay.
All right.
some fish you gotta throw back, you know?
All right, so we need a motion.
So negative number 2 and 5, as it's in Riverfront, with erosion control and pre and post construction,
And memorializing,
that the
The
shed
shed.
cannot be relocated.
memorialize it on the record drawing in
Yep.
the file, flag it with a note, with a note to the drawing and a note to the file both, with respect to future, when it comes to time, the shed's gone, it's not being replaced there. And that, you can make that my motion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
So
Oh,
it's
one opposed.
3-1. Next one is 490 Dale Street.
There's a revised plan for Gale Street, in that the measurements on the plan you guys have are incorrect. Heidi went out and confirmed that in the field. I'm not sure how they came about, but
Say that again?
the distances to the wetland on the
Were
plan
not
in your
measured,
package
not
are
correct.
not correct.
Not correct. It's probably because it's not an approved plan.
No, right on target.
That would explain why the distances aren't correct.
That said, this is for a demolition. Actually, we need to read this, so, did I just, what did I do? I think this moving too quickly.
Pursuant to the authority of the Wetlands Protection Act, Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40 as amended, and the North Andover Wetlands Protection Bylaw, the North Andover Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, May 13th, 2015, at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Meeting Room, second floor, located at 120 Main Street, North Andover, Mass., for the filing of a request for determination of applicability by applicant Gail Crowley to alter land at 490 Dale Street, map 64, parcel 11, North Andover, Mass., for the purpose of demolishing a barn within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. Plans are available at the Conservation Office, 1600 Osgood Street, Suite 2035, by Louis Napoli, Chairman.
Thank you, Jack.
So, there's no way that the wetland is 70 some odd feet away from this barn. Heidi went out with our laser. It isn't a survey plan, so the measurements are down the slope. I'm assuming that whoever measured them measured down the slope.
Where is the survey plan? I don't see a survey plan.
Right, I'm saying we don't have one. So this is an RDA for a demolition,
Okay,
not a notice of intent.
gotcha.
So a lesser plan is possible, but the lesser plan needs to be accurate,
So
and
how
this
do we-
one was not.
So how do we know the accuracy of the distances?
Because we now went out and did it.
You did it.
Yes. Because we knew it was not that far away.
Went from 87 feet to 70.
There's an existing, as you can see in the photos, there's a
78,
driveway between the existing barn and the wetland, but that's it. So Heidi went out with our laser measurer, and there's plenty of trees and things to stand at the barn and measure off to other structures. So she did that and did this revised plan. That said,
I'm just, Jen, I'm sorry, I apologize. I'm just a little perplexed. In the narrative, it states that the wetland has been delineated by a wetland scientist.
so the wetland line is correct.
The line is correct.
The line is correct. That's not at issue. The wetland scientist
So you agree
did
with-
not do the plan,
You agree with the flagging,
yes.
so that the delineation's correct? So the breakdown is, since there was no survey, nobody shot the distances,
Correct.
You didn't determine the distances accurately.
didn't determine them at all.
No,
There
they
was-
determined, they put some dimensions down, but they not measured accurately, correctly.
No, I understand,
That's
it's,
what
the checkoff list requires a 20-scale plan, I believe.
RDA has a statement that a lesser plan can be accepted if it adequately.
It says that in our bylaw on the IDA?
Yes, it does.
It does. This is a
Like-
quiz.
It is, you don't need to quiz me, I've read it a few times. I'll read it to you exactly.
Researching that, do you have any questions?
I'm also,
I assume this entire structure is being removed?
The entire structure, and then the area loamed and seeded, so the commissioner, the
But
designated
you said the
agent.
driveway is remaining?
Remaining, yes.
Why would they have the driveway go all the way to the end?
The owner is here, you can ask that.
Yeah, that's a
I think
question.
the potential new owners may wish to construct a garage. So the commission or their designated agent may, at their discretion, I guess maybe I was provided a little too much discretion, but accept less detailed plans for a request for determination of applicability than are generally required for a notice of intent application.
so you're exercising your discretionary authority to waive the scale?
Well, but
My only concern, I'll just cut to the chase, because I know this is going to be a long meeting. My only concern is that future projects on this property, what comes in after the barn goes down, I don't want to see things being repeated or mimicked because we accepted it at this meeting. That's my concern. Because we know that this is not the end of the story here on
Right.
this parcel, and that's fine. Homeowners have a right to apply. But I insist that the applications follow the checklist. So whether it's flagging of the wetlands or surveying the property, it's gotta be standardized, unless there's a real exception why it's not.
well, a new plan, a new filing on this project would be a notice of intent, not an RDA.
Well, we don't know that.
No, but I'm going to be the one to determine. So if someone's going to construct something here, they're not going to do it under an RDA.
Okay, even if it were an RDA, let's just have that conversation, and then I'll shut up. Even if it is an RDA, I object to this.
Right.
Okay, I don't want to see this in. That's
Understood.
it. I'm all
I
done.
think the only way we bent on this one was because it was a demolition, not
I get it. I
construction.
get it. But something else is going to come forward,
And
and I don't want to see it follow that trail.
What happened?
I'm all set.
The question I had about the driveway remaining, is the owner here to speak to this?
The owner? No, I'm sorry. I thought the owner was here.
No.
Sorry.
The owner isn't here to speak to it, but you're saying that
Oh, so, no, that's not the owner.
you're suggested that the property is for sale
It is.
and that a new owner is going to put a garage back there?
Potentially, that we've had questions about that, that's all I'm saying.
Nothing's been filed, so that really.
Oh, I understand, but, since they removed that entire structure, then, and loam and seeded, they might as well remove the driveway that's in, and loam and seed the whole thing.
They're not required to,
required
they're
to,
not
that's-
required to remove the driveway, though, for any reason.
Required to move. It's not-
Driveway's compliant, right? The driveway standing alone is
It's-
in compliance,
yeah.
correct? It
It's
stands
been
by-
there a long time.
Yeah, but it stands by itself.
Yep.
Whatever. All right, no more further questions.
Yep. All set. Jeff?
Did they give you a description of work? And I've got the RDA form, and the project description says none. And then there,
Yeah, there's a one-page paragraph.
the letter.
Yep.
Yeah, I consider that to be the description.
So my only comment was that the 12-inch haysock is not going to be enough for this type of demolition. That's a big barn, and there's stone, and so I said they need to trench siltation fence where they proposed the sock. And they also need to pick up the voluminous amounts of trash on the site.
Any contours, Jen, out there?
Yeah, it's steep slope right off the driveway. That's why I was saying the measurements, someone must have just walked right down that bank.
So why not a silt, a trench silt fence with hay bales instead of the sock, something that'll stand up, staked hay bales, so it'll stand up
Yep,
to soil.
you could do both,
Well,
yep.
if I'm just saying, if you have a steep slope and there's any soil migration, the idea is to stop the migration of soil.
I'm not really worried about soil migration, because when you get up to the top, it's super flat, and the driveway will be between the work. But
Okay.
I'm more worried about them, knocking debris down the slope, and,
Same point then.
yep. So we can,
Debris on the site, it has to be.
A row of staked hay bales with a silt fence that's trenched in is going to be more likely
yep,
to stop debris that's coming down a hill than a sock will.
right, yeah, I said no way on the
In fact, if it picks
sock.
up speed, it's the sock, it's just going over. But I'll leave that up to you. You're the one
Yep,
that's...
I agree.
So that's two conditions, erosion control,
Trash
picking up of the
removal.
trash.
And pre- and post-construction. There is no limit to the amount of conditions you can put on an RDA.
Yeah.
The state kind of recommends 3 as a guideline. Once you
Yeah,
require more than 3,
Yeah, the MACC book tells
Yeah.
you to stop at 3.
Right, but
And I understand we
the
could put
difference
4.
between 3 and 70, though, is pretty great, so I'm willing to go for 4.
What is this, a math quiz now? Just
No math, it's late.
no math.
That being said, is there any more discussion, have a motion?
So what are we looking for? We're looking
So
for
it would be a-
You're looking for a negative?
A negative number 3 with erosion control, trash removal, and pre and post.
Okay, moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Next one is Great Pond Road, MSI Utility Management.
Want me to read it? Okay. Pursuant to the authority of the Wetland Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, as amended, and the North Andover Wetland Protection Bylaw, the North Andover Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, May 13th, 2015, at 7 p.m. in the Town Hall Meeting Room, second floor, 120 Main Street, for the filing of a request for determination of applicability by MSI Utility Maintenance Corporation to alter land at Great Pond Road, map 96, parcel 5, for the purpose of utility work within the south roadway shoulder of Great Pond Road, within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. Plans are available at the Commission office. This was run in the Eagle Tribune on Tuesday, May 5th, published by Louis Napoli, Chairman, NACC.
Thank you, Rob. It's all yours. Aye.
So I'll let Leah explain, since I've done all the explaining so far today.
I've got it here. I'm Leah Basbanes with Basbanes Wetlands Consulting. I'm here representing MSR Utility Maintenance Corp., who is,
And I'm Matthew Raymond from MSI Utility Maintenance Corp. The work that we're doing here is for Columbia Gas to protect the gas main in that area, roughly to protect about 3 miles of pipe. And all the work that we have here will be on the shoulder of the road.
so basically it's a utility project. Entails the digging of a 1-foot wide trench, approximately 70 feet long, 1 foot off the edge of the pavement along Great Pond Road. In that trench, this is getting technical, you cannot answer this stuff, but.
In the trench, what we'll be doing, we'll be drilling down 5 anodes in the trench. The 5 anodes are going to be
1 inch, 3 inch.
well, they'll be drilled down 25 feet. And the anodes, the size of the anodes are 3 inch by 10 feet long.
So they're small rods that get drilled down into the ground within that 1 foot wide trench. And then they're connected by cables to each one, and then connected to the existing utility pole, and then a new rectifier pole that is put, I'm not even sure how far off the
They'd be
pole,
5 feet away from the existing pole.
which can be placed right in front of it. That existing pole is a regular utility pole which will remain in place. The new rectifier pole is a little 6x6 square that gets put 6 feet into the ground by a vacuum truck and stands 6 feet above the ground. So it's a fairly small
See, I
impact.
don't know if you have pictures of all this.
I'm kind of going through the ones that the commission was provided.
If you want to guess.
Is that in place now?
This is in another location.
That's just an example.
No,
That's
no,
just
it's the one, you're installing one on Great Pond Road, there's not an existing rectifier pole there now?
No, there's not one there.
Okay,
There's a utility pole there.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
but
And
just
the
that-
pre-existing.
Is there a gas line in place there?
Yes.
The gas line's already there?
Yeah, this is
So you're putting in basically a grounding conductor?
correct. This is basically taking AC current and running DC to it. This is the same theory if you have a hot water heater, you have a piece of zinc that's inside it that prevents it from rotting out. What these anodes do will prevent that gas main from rotting out within 3 miles of the area. This area is picked here, it's the lowest spots that they have the lowest readings. So that's usually where we install the rectifiers.
So what's the voltage that's traveling to the anodes?
The voltage on that is 40 volts, 5 amps to rectify the voltage going to,
In other words, you're coming off a rectifier pole, I assume you're starting with conventional 100, 240, 120, 240?
120 is coming. from
120 is
there.
coming.
Running,
Are you transforming it down?
transferring
Are you
it down,
reducing it?
And there's, going on the gas main to be 1.6 volts on it.
You're going to put 1.6 volts per anode or
No,
total?
to the gas main total.
Total to the main, 1.6 to the main?
To the main,
And these act as grounding conductors for the 1.6?
for the 1.6.
Or are they transmitting voltage at the same time, the anodes, or are they just, in other words, are the anodes taking the voltage to the pipe? Is that what they're doing?
They're taking it to the rectifier, and the rectifier is bringing it to the pipe.
To the pipe? And that prevents rot of the pipe?
Correct.
Does?
It's sort of like zinc pads that are on the bottom of the hull of a boat to,
Yeah.
prevent from rusting out.
What's the life of these anodes?
25 to 30 years.
How long have you been installing them?
25 years?
Have you had to replace any in your 25 years?
Yes.
What's the life been of the replacements?
All depends.
Well, give me the range.
Average, I've been replacing some 15 to 20 years.
So it varies by 10 years anyway,
It can vary, yes.
depending upon location.
Depending on the location.
This is a wet location, so you're going to be,
They'll be working better in a wet location.
Okay.
That's primarily they'll put out. They'll last longer in a wet location.
so essentially this is new construction
For a pre-existing gas
for a
tank.
pre-existing gas main. Okay, no questions right now.
No question.
Post-construction, what's the proposed condition?
8-inch water's going down.
After you construct?
Once the anodes are installed, it's basically backfill the trench with the existing material that's been stockpiled and seeded.
Seated.
That's basically it.
I
I mean, there's really no other work involved with that.
Yeah.
Right, nothing will be hauled out, nothing will be hauled in.
I don't think,
So it's 70 foot long, 1 foot deep, 1 foot wide,
Yep.
18-inch trench.
18 inches deep.
That gas line's already
18 inches down?
No.
The trenches.
Well, the anodes get drilled
18 inches down.
down.
You don't have to go down to the line, you're going to insert the anodes down to make contact with the line, is that?
There's a pre-existing test station there, so there's wires already on the gas main, so I just gotta go into that box there and bring the wires from that box to the rectifier pole.
So, right, so the material will just be excavated out, stockpiled, secured with erosion control. I mean, this whole process doesn't take more than a few days, right?
2 days.
Yeah, so then the material just be put right back. once the anodes are installed and the cables are
But
ready.
nothing's open overnight, anything. When it's drilled, everything's backfilled that day. And then the following day, we'll trench and put the pole in. So it's basically a 2-day project.
The setback just slightly less than 13 feet from the wetland line? Is that what?
Yeah, it's
I just wanna
really
make
right on the
sure.
shoulder of the road.
It's right down the slope to the wetland, so there's really not much.
I can see that. I just want to make sure I was reading the,
Yes, 13 is
the
the
drawing.
closest point of the trench, 16 is the farthest point.
yep, okay. I've
Going
got
vertical or horizontal? Going vertical,
Yeah, vertical.
because you show horizontal as an alternative.
In this particular situation,
What they end up doing, like there, I don't have a problem going down there. A lot of places you see bedrock and large boulders and stuff. What happens, you get, to go down vertical, then you're bringing out hammer drills and all that stuff. But this area here, I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah, it seems pretty simple, two-day project.
as you've seen, the edge of the road, there's really no vegetation there to...
You're not going to take, you don't have to
Either
remove
the
any
beavers
shrubs
the
or
highway
anything, correct?
department have
No.
already kind of taken
Do you foresee removing any of this vegetation? There's a lot of vegetation by this pole.
No, we don't need to. It's 1 foot off the edge of pavement, and then the small rectifier pole would be 5 feet off of the existing utility pole, and again, that's an area that's devoid of any other than poison ivy. So,
Motion?
Well, one more question, if you don't mind. Is there going to be a monitor on this? Because there's notes in this installation that things could change. And anode length, width, depth, and any installation to be specified by corrosion engineering.
Right, there's
Spatial.
a plus or minus. So
Yeah.
if we're trying to drill down, say 25 feet, and we only get 20, that's our, the plus and minus on that.
I guess what I'm saying is it could go exactly as you've laid it out.
should, yeah.
It
go
could, it should.
exactly. If
We hope
not-
it does.
If not, it'll go less than what we are asking for.
I can put any changes to the plan require notification of the department immediately.
Prior to the work continuing. In other
Okay.
words, if there's a change, what I'm asking is that the work stops and
Yep.
Jen comes out to approve the change
That way, the site.
right there, right then and there. Because I'm sure you're right. I'm sure it'll go just fine, but I can see that there's a lot of chances for things to change.
Right.
You don't really know. You know?
No, nothing's 100% until you actually start drilling.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
You want to make a motion?
Sure. Negative what?
Negative number 3 with pre and post erosion control inspection.
Waiver.
Oh yeah, we need to vote the waiver first, sorry.
We need a
Waiver of
waiver?
the 25-foot no disturb.
All right, so I'll move that first then. I move that we grant the waiver for the purpose of the work.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
And so negative number 3 with pre-construction inspection of erosion control, post-construction, and condition for changes in work.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That's unanimous. All set. Thank you.
one quick question, the erosion control, you okay with straw wattles?
In that location,
Okay.
yeah, it's completely flat on the edge of the road.
Yeah.
Yep. 12-inch minimum,
Okay.
and we prefer no plastic netting, some kind of natural fiber. But that'll be in the, just what we get.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, guys.
We have to continue. What's that?
Get rid of the continued ones.
Yeah, that's what we're doing now. 242-1634 and 242-1635, 50 Royal Crest. Request to continue to May 27th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Next one is 242-1651, Old Salem Village.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Peter Ogren, and I'm with Hayes Engineering. At your last meeting, you considered a notice of intent that we filed for the remaining work to be done at Old Salem Village. The bulk of the work's done, but there are, I think, 5 units that were still under the North Andover jurisdiction and 2 units that were under state jurisdiction. And there was some question as to how to issue a new order or what to do, and I think you asked Jennifer to inquire with the state as to how it might be handled. And their suggestion was to ask us to apply for a certificate of compliance for all the work that's already done. And we think that's a real burden to the applicant. Now, we have, as we've gone along, been providing for units that are within the buffer zone, been providing as-built of the locations of the structures, locations of things that are associated with the structures, retaining walls and things of that nature. But to go in and do the necessary survey to file for an as-built now, before we get an order of conditions to be able to continue the work, seems to be overcomplicating it. It seems to us that all we really need to do is have you reissue the original order, which will then encompass everything that was required for the entire project, and have us come probably what would be 2 years from a year from this coming fall, approximately 2 years or a year and a half from now, and ask for a certificate of compliance on the entire project. I think just to go through the 2 procedure thing and to go out and get a certificate of compliance before work is issued on the new thing. And then the commission also is, I think, making more effort out of their work, because you'd have to determine which of those things that were in the original NOI actually covered the work that now remains. For example, all our stormwater management is done. So things that involve the stormwater management requirement would not be applicable to the new filing. But we don't have a problem with just saying the remainder of the work is subject to the entire old order as it was, which it would have been anyway had the order not expired. And then when the project's all done, come before you with one final certificate of compliance plan. So that's what we would like to propose.
That's not the order that's before us. That's not the NOI that's before us.
No, that's correct.
To all the work that remains to be done.
What's that?
That's, the NOI that's before us is not for all the work in this entire site that remains to be done.
Yes, it is.
Well, what about the existing,
Well, actually, no, it's not.
existing properties that have been built that may require additional work? I think there was one identified as requiring additional work that was looking for
The new
a,
NOI listed specifically the items to be done. The lots, the overlay paving, it only was a request to do certain work, not to reissue the old order.
But the problem, we talked about this at the last meeting ad
Right.
nauseum. The problem is, we have to have some resolution to the expired order. We talked about incorporating it into the new order. We talked about a whole bunch of things. And I believe you checked with DEP.
Right, and so, again,
yeah,
to start over,
it suggested that by having it issue a new order that covers everything.
Right.
But what's the request before is not for a new order that covers everything that the old order covered.
so the problem here is there's been 3 weeks
See, that's
between
what
the
was
last
suggested by the,
meeting and this meeting, and no one has called to talk to me, despite me sending multiple emails to have a conversation about this. No one has spoken to me in 3 weeks.
Which is another thing that we asked for at the last meeting. We asked for cooperation with our agent so that we could have a unanimous resolution for you here, which it sounds like we don't.
I can't speak to that because I wasn't at the last meeting, but as far as resolution to the old order, the resolution of that will come when we apply for the certificate of compliance for it. There's not a limitation, there's no requirement that I know of anyway, that you have to apply for a certificate of compliance within the 3-year period. You simply have to complete the work. So we're in a situation where we haven't got a certificate of compliance. We can't get a certificate of compliance for everything, and we're looking to complete the work. That order will be resolved when the certificate of compliance issues, and you'll issue a certificate for the old order and the new order.
The suggestion was to apply for a notice of, provide a new notice of intent for the entire project, for everything that's already been built, as well as what additional work that's going to be done, so that it covers everything that the old order covered, plus whatever new stuff you're talking about. That may be different from what was in the old order. And that way, when you come in for a certificate of compliance at the end of everything, as you're talking about, then that would cover, that certificate of compliance would cover everything.
You know, I think...
But that's not what's before us. That was the problem we were discussing, and we had suggested you do that, but there was reluctance on the part of the applicant to do it that way.
Well, there wasn't no reluctance, there was just no communication.
You know, I think the only problem with doing it that way is that would impose quite a fee thing unless the commission was willing to agree to waive the fees when considering the new.
So another alternative that I presented to them and also discussed with DEP was, it is a little open-ended, but would be to permit the work that they're requesting, but also include a condition that at the time of certificate of compliance, that any discrepancies between the proposed plan from the old order and the new plan, or the work that was presented in the as-built could be rectified or corrected under the new order. But that's kind of open-ended. It could be multiple units, it could be stormwater, it could be roadway. I mean, we're not expecting that, but it could be.
Well, but that's why I pointed out that we've been giving you as-bills of the units that are in the area of jurisdiction of each one.
Right, and we've acknowledged that those as-bills, and our chair knows this very well because he's been presented with each of those as-bills, they do not agree with the proposed plans to the exact extent that the commission expects of current projects. They generally comply with the 50-foot no-build zone. That's sort of what we've agreed upon at this point.
It's similar but not similar, but we had another project that went before us that wanted to go to another phase, and we didn't have as-bills for the first two phases. It's still one project.
Right, and we made them...
But we made them give us the as-bills to make sure, so they can move forward.
Right, that everything was in compliance up to that point. And then they moved forward with phase 3.
I'm very reluctant to do, except what the DEP recommended.
No, that was what the DEP recommended.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're giving us a recommendation here. So, I mean, that's my, and like I said, we've given 3 weeks.
I mean, if we generally have the as-bills that you've presented, it shouldn't be difficult for you to go through and inspect compliance and provide us with a letter of what's in compliance and not in compliance. If you've done all the as-bills, the work you're talking about's already been done.
Well, that's not true, because the as-bills that we've done are on an individual basis, and it's the location of the structures. We did the topography of the stormwater management, but we haven't compiled all the topography between all the units and everything. It's a fair amount of work involved, and I would assume that you're not going to be looking to have this on a unit-by-unit basis. You're going to want to see a plan of the entire thing, the drainage system and all. That has not been done.
But it will be, as you go along, it will be done. If you're going to do the as-built on the existing buildings and the as-built on the existing stormwater structures, when it's finished, the data's going to be there already. So when you
Well, no,
complete
because the
CLC
interconnecting data or the piping systems and sewer and so forth that's outside the stormwater management has not been as-built.
Right, but the stuff that you've got already done will be on file. So all you have to do is integrate.
It is. I've got a
stuff.
roll of the plans that's here that I thought
So
might be
it's
helpful to you in
already
terms
there,
of what
you
we've
just have
already
to do it.
submitted.
Right, but certifying compliance isn't my job, it's yours.
Right.
And again, you can't do that without all of the interconnecting stuff as well as the location of the units. And it's my understanding, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you made changes in the unit types, you actually brought the amended plans that we did to Jennifer and got signed off before you built them.
That's been happening for about the past 2 years,
Right.
but not before.
But at some point, they have to be put on the plan.
Right.
So, I mean, if you do it now, you do it later, it's still the same work.
It is, except that we'll have to do it again later after we finish the rest of the units. It's not, the units that are left to be built are not only the 5 units that are really still subject to jurisdiction, but there are other units that are left to be built as well. And then you're asking for an as-built now, but for example, one of the things we mentioned, we haven't put the top on the street, so all the catch basins and stuff haven't got all their final grades because there'll be adjustments of those when the top goes on. Believe me, it's a considerable additional amount of work, and it's also some time before we get it. It just seemed to us that if we incorporated everything, and as far as Doug's suggestion is concerned, other than the fee thing, I would be glad to repackage the whole original NOI that was
See,
done.
wouldn't it be easier if we just redid the entire NOI to cover everything? Then you go ahead and finish the project, and then file for a request for a certificate of compliance.
I guess the question,
that covers everything.
I guess the question there becomes, would the commission be expecting to see, a number of units have changed because of the demand. The single-family units turned out to be much more popular, so
See,
we
That's the
broke.
problem.
I see exactly what the problem is here, Peter, you know, and you're trying to get around it. Are we holding a bond on the expired order?
15,000, I think. We
15,000.
released about half, I think, at some point.
I can assure you that if we were to issue a new order that you're requesting, that there would be additional bond money required. $15,000, that doesn't buy anything. I mean, you can pick your poison, you know? Do you want to pay for the as-built, or do you want to bond an entirely new project? Choice is yours. I don't understand why you haven't been communicating with our agent for the past 3 weeks. I don't understand why. I had to just hear from her now that nobody's returned her phone calls or emails.
Again, I wasn't at the last meeting.
But did you get any phone calls or emails?
I
copied everyone today, I copied everyone the first time,
You copied me
and
today with
twice,
that. I believe you emailed.
and twice in between I emailed Libby.
Elizabeth twice, and she has nothing to do with this issue.
She filed it. She's the person who originally communicated everything to me, all of the plans, all of the NOI documents. She communicated everything to me.
Well, the decision did not rest with her as to how to
Well, then
proceed.
she should have communicated to
It rests
you.
with the applicant, and he had to make the decision. I mean,
Well,
Ben's here.
I have another question. Like, if you're in agreement with Doug, you're gonna file a new NOI. So you're gonna give us a set of plans with structures that are on, houses that are there, existing, correct? And the stormwater that are there, correct? All right? So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take your new plan, your new NOI, and look at your old NOI, and look at the house lots, and then what are we supposed to do? If they're not where they're supposed to be, or not where they've been.
Well, again, when changes were made in the unit locations, and as Jennifer said, the setbacks were always on it. If we took a duplex and separated it into 2 units, a new plan was filed.
We agreed to those, and I
Yeah.
agree 100%. But, so what we're saying is, what we're asking for beforehand is the same thing as you doing a full NOI, because you still got to do the same thing. You still got to put all the existing houses on the subdivision. You still have to put all the stormwater.
Well, that's why I was asking, is that would the commission be expecting to see a new NOI that covered exactly what was there? Then you're correct. You might as well get a certificate of compliance for what's there and come. I mean,
Exactly.
that's obviously easier.
So if you don't have the full, I mean, the purpose of a PCOC is to determine what portions of the project are in compliance. So if you have individual lot plans. and you can
Locations, yeah, we
right,
can.
and determine compliance based on those plans with the existing lots, and you have the stormwater system or portions of it as builted, why not just certify what is in compliance? And then that allows the commission and you to permit whatever hasn't been as builted and approved in compliance for the new thing, but not the whole project.
Because we don't have all the grade information. We do capture the grade when we locate the structure.
I don't think the commission's overly concerned about grades. I think the commission is overly concerned about the structures that were built and what was built onto them, next to them, and so forth.
And are the structures built as designed?
Right.
And if not, were they
What's
modified
different?
appropriately?
Right, and with the stormwater system, especially the detention basins, are they adequately sized, or are they
You've
smaller?
already been submitted those as-built with the computations.
We have them, but you haven't submitted any kind of certification that they are or are not built according to plan. And
Well,
that's what we
there
would be
was-
looking for.
What if there's been changes in impervious area? That changes your calcs on your stormwater? That's the kind of
Well,
information
again,
we
that
need.
goes to the fact that we have not captured all of the grade information, the location of all of the driveways, because that was not included in the as-bills that were sent to you. That was when the foundation was done.
I think we have as-built foundations, Ben, with driveways on them. I think the as-bills are pretty thorough
Ben-
for the
Ben's been
particular
forward.
lots.
He's had many changes stuff, he's come forward with the stuff.
What? No, I think where you were providing me with the plan before you built it and the plan after has only been the past couple years. That wasn't happening from the very beginning because we had problems and you came in and we solved that problem by going through that process. It may be 3 years, but it hasn't been for the entire life of the project, for sure.
Why don't we try approaching it this way? Why don't I take all the information we have and compile it together in a plan, come up and see Jennifer, because one thing you're talking about, a full as-built that would be required, which would be at least topography within 100 feet and all the things that's tributary to the stormwater. In another breath, we're talking about, well, it's really not the topography, it's the location of the structures, and then maybe the driveways and a comparison of the imperviousness. Why don't we compile what we got and sit down and see if that's what's considered to be sufficient to support it? I mean, to me, when you do an as-built for a certificate of compliance, it would include a new topography of everything within 100 feet of any resource area. It would include the as-bills of the drainage system that's tributary to it. I mean, that's a typical as-built.
That's what you've been asking to do, right? You want to sit down,
Well, I mean, if you...
review with the engineer?
As I think Ben and I know, there's a lot of as-built information in our file. I think they could certify a lot of what is out there, including a lot of the stormwater management features and the existing structures. And then we could, if we had a partial certificate of compliance for that information, we could then decide what need to be permitted going forward. Rather than the whole project and everything all over again, it could be very specific. It could be just topography on the individual lots. It could be...
But what I'm saying is that needs to happen
But that's
outside of this meeting.
Oh, yeah,
At
isn't
your
happening
office before
tonight.
you bring us back a product. We're
Then
not-
again, what would happen is, you have that meeting, you determine what is done and what further needs to be done.
Then you give us
And then
recommendations.
what you do is they file a request for a certificate of compliance for what's been done, so that gets cleared up, and then the new NOI covers anything that's left to be done.
Well, the new NOI already covers what's left to be done. We sat down and looked
Except
at
if
which
there's
ones.
something found in your application for a certificate of compliance that isn't in compliance, then you would need to make corrections there, and then that could be added to the new NOI.
That's what we were asking from the beginning.
We have no assurance that what you're talking about in covering everything, we have no assurance that it'll be correct on your new NOI, because we don't know what's actually been done in some cases. We know what's been done in some and some not. I think what Jen's been asking is to have you sit down and do some of that work, because it's not going to get done here at this table, I assure you.
You can't do it with no plans.
You know, it's just not going to happen here. That's why you guys you have to dress it up and bring it back to us. That's what we've been saying. That's what we said 3 weeks ago.
That's why it's lost 3 weeks.
Honest to God, Peter,
Well,
that's what we
again,
said 3 weeks ago.
I don't think that's not what I understood anyway. I understood 3 weeks ago Jennifer was first going to go inquire of the DEP.
And I did, and I emailed all of you within 2
Yes.
days of the meeting.
No, if you.
And Elizabeth emailed me back and said, we'll get back to
Go get a recording of the
you.
last meeting, and you'll see exactly what was said, and you'll see what I'm telling you is true.
I almost printed out those emails for tonight because Elizabeth's response was, I will take this to the applicant and we will discuss what is the best way forward. That was her response to me.
And I read
That was
it.
3 weeks ago.
And I read them today with her at a meeting, so I know they were there. She showed
Yep.
me.
So if you're willing to do that, that'll save everybody a lot of time, and you probably get it resolved more quickly.
All right. Thank you for your time.
All right, so you're going to...
Continue to May
Motion to
27th.
continue to the next meeting?
Second.
Next meeting?
I certainly can't get that work compiled together by next meeting. I think it'll have to go. There's no way.
Okay,
I think we'll have to hold out at least 2 meetings and see.
June 10th.
June 10th.
I've got to get it compiled together and then sit down with Jennifer and then see what is or is not maybe adequate for what you want.
June 10th, Peter? Yeah. Okay.
All right. Motion to continue to June 10th.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
That being said, they are working on portions of the site that are outside of jurisdiction per discussions with Lou.
Okay.
I spoke. Persons who are well aware do not go into the buffer zone.
Okay, sounds, I think we're on the right track now.
Okay. I hope.
I don't think I downloaded your new planting plan, did I?
Where am I? Okay. 242-1644, 687
Here it is.
Forest Street. Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. 242-1650, 1653 Great Pond Road. My bad.
So this is the raised pond pump station. It's a big file, and, oh, nope, that's the wrong file. Where is raised pond? Hold on. Oh, there it is. We had asked at the last meeting to have a revised planting plan, and that has been done, including a list of appropriate plants to be planted. So as soon as this PDF loads, but maybe you want to point out where the plantings are going to go.
Jason Creel from Northern Current, with Jack Troy this evening. What will pop up here shortly is also represented here. And I apologize, it's a little hard to see from probably this distance, but the planting plan that we had discussed at the previous meeting is highlighted in blue. So what Jack is doing is adding, I believe there was some question about screening of the new pump station. That's captured in plantings along Great Pond Road and the western boundary. Western border of the parking lot along the pond and on the eastern side of the new proposed driveway.
There's a large amount of screening is left in this sort of triangular area in front of the pump station along Great Pond Road, because that is property that does not belong to the town. And so the trees on that property will remain, so there shouldn't be any issue with screening at that point.
Correct.
So the screening is really at either side of the new drive, and then on the back side of the parking lot where there was a lot of loam and seed originally proposed, and I think the planning board had wanted to see more native plantings, less grass. So that said, this is ready to close and issue.
Any questions, Al?
I don't have any questions on this one.
Doug?
No questions.
Yep. Jack?
No questions.
Motion.
Move that we close the issue in 21 days or less.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Well, I look at this. 242-1644. 280. I'm going to go with 287 because
I should be able to get it out
the agenda
tomorrow,
says
probably.
687, but I'll go with 287.
It's 287.
Okay.
So I think when we last left this, we were talking about paving the existing driveway. We were also waiting for the snow to melt because we couldn't review the wetland line. That said, we have reviewed the wetland line. There were a few minor flag changes. And since then, Greg did some additional research on paving versus gravel, which I'm sure you can fill them in on. But I also reviewed the planning board special permit for the common drive and the prior notice of intent. And other than the driveway being proposed as gravel to the planning board under the special permit, there's no exclusion that it remained gravel. There was nothing in either our order or their order. That said, special permits with the planning board, if modified substantially, may have to go back in front of the planning board, but that would be likely an administrative acceptance or something like that, according to the acting town planner at the time. not necessarily the new town planner. And then my only other concern with the site is in reviewing all these prior orders, there was significant mitigation required on the site, and part of that is where the existing shed is, and that mitigation is proposed to be restored, and Greg has added plantings to that area, and I'm sure Greg will show you, there's another area on the site that was proposed as mitigation there's been some slight lawn incursions, so we probably need to talk about monumentation. And with that, I'll turn it over to Greg.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, so one of the main reasons why we had to continue the last hearing was because of the snow. Jennifer and I had a chance to go out and review the boundaries, and as she said, we moved, I think, about 5 flags. Those have all been changed in the plan, and the buffer zones and no disturbs have been changed as well. We also had to add the dry well locations. Those were shown on the as-built, and the original plan we submitted did not show those. We've done that. We had to move the propane tank, which we've done. The gas company has some specifications on proximity to the structures or anything that could serve as a source of ignition. In this case, it was the pool filter. So we've relocated that. One of the main things I wanted to do, too, there was some discussion about paving that close to the resource area, the potential for some contaminants to reach the resource area. So I found all of the pro-pavement people I could come up with. No, I didn't really know where to start. So I talked to the National Paving Alliance, who put me in touch with the Massachusetts Paving Alliance, and I spoke to their environmental safety officers. I got some literature. I supplied their contact info. They're more than willing to talk to anybody that wants to ask them questions, but the long and short of it is they agree that some companies may be cutting corners on some of the materials that they use beneath the pavement, but the pavement itself, once cured, should not leach any contaminants to the resource area, and they cited some studies which I supplied as well. But I think this could be conditioned so that, prior to placing the pavement, whatever they put down below it, we could easily determine if it had any visible contaminants or certainly anything that looked like it didn't belong. And if we had to do any type of test or specify that the material come from a certain source, our clients are willing to do that. They don't want to have a contaminated resource area in front of their yard either. There's no other location that would be better to place the driveway. There's really only one way to this lot, and that's where the driveway is now. They wouldn't be looking to increase the size of the driveway. I think the special permit required 12-foot wide. Some of this existing gravel driveways a little wider than that, and some of it's a little narrower than that. They wouldn't be any wider than what's there now, and certainly the areas that are wider than 12, they'd be willing to reduce back down to 12. We also wanted to look at the soils to see if we could propose any type of infiltration. And we could easily show an infiltration trench on this plan, and the reality is the material that's there, it's a very poorly drained sandy loam on top of ledge, boulders, and it just wouldn't serve any purpose. So what we've proposed instead is a trap rock shoulder that would slow down the runoff and help spread it out a little bit before reaching the resource area. Our clients also submitted a letter that describes everything they did prior to their purchase. And I know Sean, who's not here tonight, mentioned that he actually looked at this lot, and paving was something that he was told would not be allowed here. Our clients did the same thing, and it's documented, and they submitted that documentation. They talked to 2 of the former agents, Julie Perino and Allison, and there's a phone log that actually gave them permission to pave the top half of their driveway. And then our clients had gotten permission from Julie, and then prior to paving, they called the office again just to make sure it was still okay, and that's what the phone log talks about, and it referenced the prior call to Julie. So they did do their due diligence before they bought the lot, because they also wanted to pave this. And they were told at the time that there would be no prohibition, or there was nothing in the order or deed that would prohibit them from doing so. They'd still have to file a waiver, and those regulations were still in place. That has not changed. But they also talk about the maintenance that they have to do to that driveway every year. It's on average $1,600 a year, and that's bringing in sand, gravel, and material to fix potholes. And I've seen it. I haven't been involved with this project too long, but when I go out there, you see the potholes, you look next to it, you can see where it washes out. So I do think that paving this will be okay for the resource area. I don't see any major impact moving forward. The only thing that could come up is it could heat up runoff and change the temperature within the resource area, but this is so shaded, I wouldn't expect that to happen. But one thing that Jen pointed out too is that the prior order talked about some restoration and mitigation. The plan that was referenced in the order describes mitigation in this area and this area. There's been some minor encroachments. Obviously, they put the shed where they weren't supposed to. Part of our application is to move that. But this area that I've colored in pink, we have not talked about yet. That's an area of lawn that's been pushed back a little further than it should be. So that's something that we'll have to restore and put some markers along as well. And our clients are willing to do that. Let's see. We didn't hear from Natural Heritage prior to the last meeting. We have now. They've issued a no adverse impact, no take letter. And as Jen said, we've added some plantings instead of just a seed mix.
Al?
I don't know where to begin.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated. I've just read the letter dated March 6th. I had to read it twice. And I almost choked the second time I read it, so I'm not going to even refer to the paragraphs that...
Okay. That was a letter from the applicant.
Yeah. Well written, and I appreciate what the applicant is asking, and I have no objection to what the applicant is asking. I just simply, when I look at the history and the rock stars in the history, I'm blown away.
You can see their frustration.
I can see their frustration, and now maybe you can feel what we went through at the time.
Yes.
So I'm going to pass on asking you any questions right now.
Yeah, you mentioned that's a common driveway. Is there another, does it serve another lot?
It does.
Where's that lot?
That lot is right here. And the interesting thing is, they were also issued...
You don't show any driveway that they have that comes off of that one. You don't indicate it.
Well, we've got a little stub here. It's right here, and that's actually paved. They got a letter from Julie Perino giving them permission to pave that as well.
Is one of those houses up for sale?
I don't believe so.
There's outside the head of the driveway there, looked like there was a sign, for sale sign.
No, I didn't see any for sale signs when I was out there.
Well, I drove by it tonight, there was one up.
Really? Okay.
It looked like a for sale sign, I could be wrong, but it
Was it paving company?
It's the paving company already advertised.
No. No.
paving company
I can
sign
assure,
already up.
I can assure you that's not the case. And they did speak with their neighbors, discussed paving the driveway. The neighbors are on board. They love the idea. Their driveway's paved. Our client's driveway's paved. The only section that isn't is the section that's common.
Okay, when you pave that driveway, do you intend to remove the existing soil and put down better, you said it was a sandy loam that was there. Do you intend to dig that out and replace it with gravel?
No, that will say they may need to add some material in spots just to make it level, but there should be no need to remove that material. It's very solid. A lot of it's just a skim coat on top of what I think is ledge or very, very large boulders. I hand dug a few holes in spots, and right at the corner closest to the wetland, you can see there's a knob of something right here, and there's a big chunk of something else next to it, almost like they cut out a chunk of ledge to put that driveway in, or cut through a boulder. But it's solid. They shouldn't need to remove that.
That won't be a good thing.
Okay.
That won't be a good thing when they pave it. They're not gonna hold it. I talked with Jen about this today also. On the original order, it had a 10-foot width on the original plan. Right, Jen, did we look at that?
If you scale that plan, it's 10 feet.
It's a 10-foot driveway, so reluctance.
I didn't see anything in the planning board decision that referenced,
I have a copy of the plan, and it's got a cross-section up top. This was the special permit plan. It shows it 12 feet.
It shows 12 there.
It says 12 there. Is that the, which is the record, is that the record?
That's
it's not our record.
That's the
It's a
special permit.
Oh, you
Planning board
applied, they applied for, it's the
For the
plan?
common drive, needs a special
Yeah,
permit.
this one shows the other house. too.
This is the record plan here.
I just put it in front of them. I mean, that's the revised record plan, but both plans show a 10-foot driveway when scaled. I mean, it doesn't state anywhere.
The reason why I asked that, Greg, because the shoulder area is, if you went to a 10-foot width, I know it's narrow, but that would allow you to put, some stone apron along both sides.
Yep.
So like you say, any contaminants or anything was coming off the driveway would be filtered through the stone. Plus, if they get off the shoulder of the driveway, they're not gonna break it because the stone is gonna be there. So that was my thing, because like I said, there was the last meeting, when you first came in, it was everybody was pretty reluctant about you paving this.
Right.
The other thing is, and I agree, the pavement is far better than gravel because the perpetual maintenance, and every time you disturb the soil, it gets loose, it rains, and that silt's going right into the wetlands.
Right.
So I'm a paving contractor, but I'm not saying because of that, but I'm just saying, I think it's better that it gets paved, because I think it'll be less impact in the long run. That area you just mentioned, you said something about ledge and stuff. Because they're gonna have to regrade it, I would take another look at that, because if you try and pave over that ledge, it's gonna break. So they're gonna, just so you take a look at that and see if there's an area there that they can fill without changing the grades to impact the wetlands. But if you put like this much gravel over stone and try and pave it, it won't last 2 years. It'll fraction, especially on the turn.
Right.
It'll fraction. So I mean, it's something to have, just to make your applicant aware. So when they get somebody in there to look at that they know what they're
So they
looking.
put thin pavement down too, they got a problem.
Yeah.
Now you should look, 3-inch pavement, the driveway through.
That's why I'm leaning toward the narrower width, so we can protect the shoulders and the wetlands from discharge. Like I said, I haven't seen the grades or whatever, but that was my only thing on that. I think that was it.
So I guess Lou's saying not more than 12 feet with the shoulder.
Right. 10 feet paved, 1 foot gravel shoulders.
On either, you're talking about on either
On
side?
either side.
And then still keep the trap rock on the lower end, just to slow things down, or do you think the gravel would be suitable?
Well, and on the other thing too, if that's what I forgot, on the contaminants, we could condition it for the subgrade for the driveway to use stone base, a dense stone base instead of, we call it RAP, it's recycled asphalt, because recycled asphalt does have contaminants in it, because they mill the road, and whatever's in the road when they mill, bottles, cans, then they'll just choose it up and it ends up in a pile. And so there are contaminants in recycled asphalt.
Yep.
So I would suggest,
Stone base?
stone base, native, crusher run. We call it crusher run, stone
Crusher
base,
tailings.
Lin pack.
Lin Pack is a common one.
Is a
down-
common
down-
one.
down Salem area.
or even crushed gravel, which, you know, but most of it's for compaction. I
It's the
would
crusher tailings,
Right,
basically, from
but not,
crushed
but
stone.
not, just exempt recycled asphalt from this
Yep.
scenario. That's about it, I can think off the top of my head. Deb?
In your narrative, Jennifer, you said that there was approved restoration that was converted to lawns.
So Greg highlighted that, it's the area in pink, and they said they'd be willing to monument and restore that.
Okay, and what type of, would it be the markers for the monuments?
Well, that's up to you, and it is a lot of area to monument. There was no wall or anything required at the time, so I think if there were monuments out there, that it's largely edge of wood line, and it's 50 feet out, not 25, since there's a vernal pool here. And just a note, too, there is a change to where the 50-foot no disturb zone ends on this plan than what was previously approved. Greg defined the limits of the vernal pool and then the 100-foot away from that as far as what was considered ephemeral pool habitat. And then adjusted where the 50-foot no disturb was required based on those limits. The 50-foot kind of extended a lot farther on the previous plan, and I'm not sure who delineated it or what they did, but I do agree with Greg's delineation, and we discussed that today, so, but it will be a change as to where the 50-foot ended on the prior plan, where the relocated shed would be someplace. It's still outside the 50-foot, but now that's 50-foot no build, not 50-foot no disturb.
I did look in the old order. There is a perpetual condition that requires a permanent 25-foot no disturb and 50-foot no build. It doesn't say anything about a 50-foot no disturb or 75-foot no build.
No, it does. Earlier in the order, I guess.
But the continuing conditions, which I
Reference-
thought was odd, because if it required the 50-foot that was shown in the prior plan, we'd have to do some serious modifications to this. But the way this works is there's a wetland back here, and then there's the pool. The vernal pools are up this side. Then there's an intermittent stream that kind of flows down. So to call this entire wetland vernal pool habitat just doesn't make any sense.
It's just not referenced the same in the continuing conditions.
Right. I mean, but this doesn't require it to remain in perpetuity.
Well,
Like
that's what the other one is referencing, is this. I'm just saying they didn't use the same language in the continuing conditions. So here it says, you know, a 50-foot no disturbance zone, a 75-foot no disturb, and then when you go to the continuing conditions, they call it a 25-50. So I call that crafty.
typo.
I mean, and the plan doesn't reflect a 25-50, it reflects a 50-75. So I'm not going to argue, but I just think Greg's delineation now is accurate.
And we're proposing posts and placards over here, these 3 black dots I had colored. We could do the same, just continue it all around here. It'd be a strange place to put a wall. I think in lieu of the wall, if the posts weren't acceptable, we'd be asking for something like a post and rail fence or something. The stone wall wouldn't really make sense in that spot.
So Jen, do you think a post and rail fence would be better, or just leave it with the markers extending?
I'm not going to get into monumentation because you guys like what you like, and whatever you think is appropriate for this site. There hasn't been any dumping or any of that sort of thing going on the site, other than the incursion of that bit of mowed lawn in the shed. There was no requirement in the previous order for anything, so I think something should be placed out there, definitely.
They've got plantings proposed.
Right, but I mean, to protect those from being, mowed down at some future date, something should demarcate the no disturb zone.
Yeah, and I'm not proposing anything really substantial in the form of plantings that would act as a suitable barrier. I think you'd at least need posts and placards.
Well, if Sean were here, he'd want the stone wall.
How big's the area, Greg?
So it's this green area here, this little triangle,
Yeah, okay,
and then it's this pink area here. But the barrier would extend all along here, which is probably 200 feet, a little bit more. A lot of it's just edge of driveway.
Yeah.
That would be woods. And then there's a spot where they had there's a little basketball hoop and stuff here. They just, been mowing out a little further than they should.
I'd have to say on your last pool project, which was Thistle, remember? I think fence was required. Just my
Yeah, we made a
recollection.
fence right along the driveway.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, we like stone walls, not as punitive measures. We like stone walls because they're permanent. It's not, post and rail fences. I could take you for a drive on Salem Street to a project we just approved 4 short years ago, and the post and rail fence is all hanging down. There's about 100 feet of post and rail, and it's right along Mosquito Brook, and it was a pretty sensitive area, and the old St. Cyr property.
Right.
And that post and rail fence looks like it been hit by a tank, and nothing's hit it. It's just, they don't last, There's one nail, it slides in the slot, there's one nail, it's done. So we kind of we like something that provides a little more permanence, and so we like stone walls, and we like vertical granite posts. I don't know if there's room here to compromise and do a little bit of each, or...
And we've done boulders too, but
Boulders, we've allowed for large boulders. They're not as aesthetically pleasing as a nice stone wall, but, they'll do the trick for sure.
Granite posts are nice, expensive, but nice.
Say it again?
Granite posts,
Granite posts are excellent, and they're permanent, and you can put the markers on them. Definitely granite posts are a nice alternative. I don't know if that's applicable, or if we should have some stone wall and then some granite posts. I'm not sure. I'm kind of struggling with the idea a little bit. And what do you guys think? I mean, anybody have any thoughts on
I think granite posts are good.
it? In its entirety, like have them?
Because Greg had said it would be difficult for the stone wall.
that's wonderful.
Yeah, we've done walls in the past. I just
Yeah.
think it's going to be a strange spot for a stone wall. You'll have a small section of wall that's just kind of floating in the middle of woods and yard.
Well, no, we don't.
This edge of the driveway, it almost marks itself, but we are proposing markers there.
so could you do 5, 1 at each corner of the drive, and then 3 along the long section?
You talking about granite posts?
Right.
I think that's reasonable.
For all the, not only do you get the night, they're attractive, they don't look ugly, and so they wouldn't detract from the surroundings, and they are permanent.
Right.
Unless you hit them with a front end loader.
Right.
You remember?
Yep, we can do that.
And it's not to penalize this applicant, per se, but it's the next person and the next person.
Yep.
So that's why, like Al says, the post and rail fence are a joke. You might just put a,
Yeah, if you were gonna put a post rail fence, I'd tell you, don't bother.
yeah, it's a waste,
Yeah,
of money.
don't even
It's a
waste your time.
of money and waste of what we want.
Biggest scam in the world, those things. Can I just go backwards real quick? Your proposed trap rock shoulder, are you keeping that?
No.
We're not keeping the trap, no? So it's gonna be the trenching you talked about on either side?
Yeah.
And scratch the trap?
Well, the reason why, because it says here, where am I here? I just saw it. 1 foot.
Yeah,
6
1 foot deep.
inches. You're using 6-inch rock.
Gotcha.
There's nothing there. There's nothing to hold it.
So it wouldn't...
So I would use like 1.5 inches.
Yeah, we had 1.5 inch, the label probably, yeah. So this label is wrong.
Okay, that's what I say. I'm looking at.
So this label's wrong?
I did this, Lou, and then the engineer said, no, this is what we have to do.
Okay.
1.5 inch stone,
Okay.
just as you said, 1 foot
Because
deep.
you could.
So that's,
like a puzzle.
so the detail is what you're going to do?
That's what we'd be proposing.
So
But
you
if-
you like that, or?
Yeah, see, 1.5 inch stone, a foot deep and a foot wide. That's perfect.
And we'll do that on both sides.
Both sides.
Okay.
Gotcha, all right.
And how much, what do I need for separation between the ledge and the pavement that would be suitable?
I do 6 inches anyways,
Yeah.
Usually what I like to see is 12 inches.
or 12, but like I said, the problem is now,
Standard is 12 with a minimum 3 inches of pavement.
right, but if we get too high, that might change the grade of everything too. Like I said, without seeing it,
We'll go back out and dig specifically in that spot, see what we're dealing with, and see what we can get away with. We'll try to get a foot.
yeah, try and get a foot, at least 6 inches.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, getting back to the approved restoration area that was converted to lawn, what do you plan on doing with that?
We were just going to let it go. It should have no problem filling in on its own, but we can also propose some plantings there to help speed it up. We'll just move what we were proposing in the other area, maybe some more maples and some more blueberry bushes. They'll do fine there.
So I'll pass it by Jen.
Yep.
Make sure that she gets what she wants in that
What do
area.
you think, in high bush?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
On this?
Yeah, the water table's pretty high in that spot.
Should be good, right?
Good. I was gonna ask.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
A lot of people.
The report by the Asphalt Pavement Alliance is, clean water with asphalt and everything. I think that's pretty reasonable to assume that report might be biased. Do you have a report or something that corroborates this from like an impartial government agency or somebody that?
You mean, wait, Jack, you mean a government agency that we trust?
I think Greg is going to write it himself.
To be honest,
I'm here to help.
we laugh a little bit at the office, but to be honest, I didn't know where else to go.
Right.
Okay, so you don't have anything else?
No,
other
and
than
believe
this?
me,
Just remember, you
I
allowed the
did some
town to
research.
pave all the streets right beside the wetlands and everything like that without any questions
In
whatsoever.
front of his house.
But they do point out,
Outside of the buffer zone and
No,
no
no.
vernal pools either?
And next to the lake where you drink the water.
Within a few feet of the wetlands.
they do point out in the report, which I thought was honest on their part, that, let me see if I can find it here.
Are we referring to the,
I'm going to tell you, Ray, you definitely were the talk of the water cooler that day.
one thing we've learned is Greg takes on the tough projects.
Well,
He doesn't take any easy projects. He takes on the tough
He
ones.
does his diligence.
He really,
they did point out, I can't find it, but anything that makes it onto the pavement that had the potential of getting ground up with it could serve as a potential.
you talking about this report right here?
Yeah. Yeah, there's a spot right here.
The note in the really small print.
The fine print note? Yeah.
The authors pointed out that during normal use of pavement, the asphalt may come in contact with vehicle exhaust, lube oils, gasoline, and metals from brake pads. Then they say, and yet no PAHs were detected. But I think we all know if you get enough of that in the pavement, it's ground up, it's going to make it where it's going.
Plus, this.
They're also talking about a high-use roadway.
You're talking interstates.
Yeah, an interstate highway, or Route 1A up the beach. They're not talking about this driveway.
They said they'd come to the meeting.
Oh, my
No,
God.
that's not necessary.
Yeah, yeah.
Please.
Good choice, Greg, good choice.
Do not come. But no, in all honesty, I know this area well. There's pavement a little closer than what we're proposing. I've seen what the existing driveway's doing. I think moving forward, this will be a good solution.
The report also said some asphalt pavements actually improve stormwater runoff. Is the proposal, does it include a specific grade of asphalt that is one of the ones that improve stormwater runoff according to the?
No,
Run off faster into the wetlands.
even permeable pavement, it wouldn't be a good solution for this spot just based on what's beneath it. You'd have water going through and then it would have nowhere to go. And then based on where the water tables are here, we wouldn't be able to meet the separation requirement anyways. We'd have to jack the whole road up.
And porous pavement, you'd have to change the whole subgrade.
Right.
So the impact would be crazy.
Right.
I think the conclusion is it won't be an improvement, except from a maintenance standpoint, from the homeowners.
Well, there's one thing you got to consider. You're right about the maintenance thing, but there's a lot of loss from the dirt driveway over the course of the year as you move snow and as the weather moves it. There is a lot of stuff that leaves it, and if you upgrade it and maintain it every year, there's more movement again. There's more potential for things to move around. I mean, I have one just like it that,
If you look at the plan that says 12 feet, and some of his spots say 14 and a half feet, 15 feet.
Yeah.
So it just goes away.
By paving a 10-footer with a trench on each side, you're locking it in.
There you go.
No more questions.
All right. Motion?
What is it?
Just close an issue on this.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, approval of waiver for, is there a waiver? No.
Yes, there's a waiver. We're in the no build and no disturb.
Although they were previously approved to be there, so just a
Well,
requirement.
is a waiver required, or, I mean, if you want to issue a waiver...
Might as well just vote
to
it
keep it a
and-
clean filing,
Yeah,
I'll move
keep
that
it
we
there.
grant a waiver for the purpose of the filing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And then
That's
it's just
unanimous.
close an issue.
I'll move that we close the issue in 21 days or less.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll get a revised plan over to you, Jen, before the end of the week.
Great, thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Well,
Thank you.
okay. That was 4. Next one is 242-1643, 674 Church Street.
Thank you.
Which one are we on?
So this is Turnpike
Turnpike
Street, which was the application for the septic system on a very confined lot. We did get out there to review the wetland line post-snow melt and found that there were wetland soils much farther into the yard than were previously flagged. Jack had Norse Environmental go out and reflag the area, which they did, and largely conformed to what I had seen out there. Unfortunately, that puts portions of the system within the 50-foot no-build zone, but given the layout of what they've got, that's the best that they can do. So.
Yeah, just to add on to what Jennifer said, I'm trying to get as many local upgrade approvals from the Board of Health that I can for this project. You can see where my soil absorption system is. I'm supposed to maintain 10 feet to a property line. I'm asking for 6. That way, at least the soil absorption system is outside the 50-foot no build. It's a tough lot. Once the wetland flags, it was hydric soils. It pushed the flags even more up gradient from where they were before. And you can see from this plan, the 50-foot no-build zone runs the vast majority of this property. There's very little area. I have a water service that I have to stay 10 feet away from. I'm even taking setback requirements to the structure itself, 18 feet instead of 20. I tried to at least have the soil absorption system 50 feet away. So the items that are within 50 feet are the septic tank, the pump chamber, and the pad for the blower unit for the microfast system. If you look at the plan, the existing septic tank is within the 25-foot no disturb, and the existing leach field is in the wetland. So even though some of my items are within 50, I'm making a bad situation better. Just to refresh the commission's memory, they have a failed septic system. This was purchased at auction. It's been failed for a number of years. They're under an enforcement from the Board of Health to upgrade it. I know Lou went and spoke to DPW. I originally tried to propose a sewer force main. This sewer is about 450 feet down the road. I started in that direction on this design and then was told no force main connections. Lou went and had a talk with Tim Willett. I think Tim backed that up. I have emails from DPW telling me not to pursue that avenue, and that's why I'm here in front of you with the septic plan. So I have very little options. I'm putting you guys in a bad situation because it is what it is. All I can offer is that with the microfast unit, there is some mitigation, there's some denitrification that will take place. The state code requires 50 feet from a leach field to a wetland. I at least maintain that 50 feet. With this design, it doesn't meet the local Board of Health requirement, but it is a failed system. It's an upgrade situation. I'm doing the best I can with what I'm given.
Al?
Disappointed in the DPW. I have no questions.
Doug?
No questions.
No questions. Yeah.
No questions for me.
That being said, motion?
So we need a waiver of the 50-foot no build.
I'll move the waiver first.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
You want to close it?
Close an issue, yep.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you for your time.
Right.
Okay.
Next one is 242-1647, 172 Summer Street.
Now, where are we? He did not get me his plan, so he'll need to continue for 2 more weeks. He was-
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Do we have,
So 1077, oh, that's good, start our next one.
we have 2 continuances.
Oh,
242-257, Laconia Circle request to continue.
So moved.
Second.
And then 242-333, they were both, I should do them both at the same time. Request to continue to.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Okay, next, top of the wall here. 242-1589, COC request for 1077 Osgood Street.
so erosion controls have been removed, wetland markers are up, and Lisa has signed off on the as-built stormwater system.
Wonderful. Any questions, Al?
No questions.
Doug?
No question.
Deb? Jack? Motion?
Move that we grant the COC as requested.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. 242-1593, modification request for 16 Berry Street.
Good evening. It seems like you guys are moving at a fast clip in here.
We're trying.
Trying.
Don't bog us down.
I think I'm going to try not to bog
Don't
you
ruin our
down.
record here.
We don't want to ruin your record. Ann Martin from LEC Environmental. We filed a minor modification exemption confirmation with you for some plan changes for the Berry Farm, formerly Riding Academy project. Some of them are more internal to the site and don't occur in the buffer zone, but we included all of them because some of them affect impervious surface. We met with Jennifer in early April, and she authorized us to front-run all the materials past Lisa, so when we came in before you, Lisa would have already commented on all the changes, and if she had comments that required us to revise anything, we would be bringing before you something that Lisa had already peer-reviewed. So on May 5th, I submitted cover letter summarizing the modifications along with a memo by Nick Pauling from GPR that went to Lisa, and the email correspondence with her and all the stormwater calculations. And essentially, the modifications fall into a couple categories. Some of it's very minor grading changes. It's changes linked to ADA handicap accessibility for grading, sidewalks, parking, or for the trails. There was a recommendation from the individual who did the management plan for the cemetery to extend a stone retaining wall, so that's included in there. There were some changes and revisions to the deck and the pool layout area around the amenities building, as well as a change in the orientation of the amenities building. And then some changes for a hydraulic connection between ponds 1 and 2 to improve the way that that functioned. And those were the minor modifications. And then the exemption confirmation is just seeking your confirmation that the work for the improvements at the intersection of Berry Street and 114 qualify for the exemption. And basically, the work that's with all of the realignment is outside of the buffer zone, but in the buffer zone is the actual milling and resurfacing, and then installation of new signage along the way is in the buffer zone. And so that's what we're here for. That's the short story. Nick or I can go into more detail, anything that you'd like, or if you have any questions from having reviewed the materials.
Al?
No questions.
No questions.
No questions.
Pretty minor, Jen.
Plus,
I mean, it's not all minor, but it's certainly all within the scope of what was originally permitted. And police has reviewed it, so that gives me a lot more confidence, some of it having being hydrological and not just sidewalk related or wall related. That stuff was easy to look at, but I'm confident now that she's reviewed it. There were a couple emails back and forth, a little bit of discussion, but nothing material.
And ZBA needs to, have they,
I'm sorry, I just missed a few minutes, but I did speak to the community development director, and I think he has spoken to Eric.
Yes, since I sent the email, Jennifer asked this question earlier in the week, and I had said we've been trying to schedule a meeting, and they haven't been able to coordinate it. A meeting has now been scheduled for next Wednesday.
So generally, things that, again, stay within the scope of the original project are considered inconsequential by ZBA. I'm not going to speak for them, but at some point, they'll have to see it and approve it, and if anything, they require anything largely different, they'd have to come back to you. I guess that's the only caveat.
And the ZBA, because it was a 40B zoning permit, it's very common that the construction drawings or final drawings come back to them for final review after the 40B approval, and there was a condition in their approval that said any changes had to come back to them, and that's what Eric has been trying to coordinate with the community development director. That'll occur next week.
okay, any more questions? No?
I think once before us here was pretty clear.
Good. Motion?
I'll move that we grant the modification as requested.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Does that cover the exemption as well?
Yeah.
Well, they're not voting on it because it's not technically in front of them. I mean,
Because it's exempt?
it's exempt.
Okay, I just didn't want to,
And did you say Mass Highway just approved that too, right, Jen?
yes, they did.
Okay,
Okay, great, thank you.
thank you. It's who?
That said, we would subject Mass Highway to the local bylaw. I said that said we would subject Mass Highway to the local bylaw, but it's not Mass Highway, it's the 40B.
I don't want to have that argument.
Right, right.
No, you don't want to go there.
I let them make that argument.
Okay.
Next one is 242-1584 CLC request for 250 Clark Street.
Okay, and Greg's back, so.
What is it?
Great Pond Road.
250 Clark Street. The hangar up on the other side of the airport.
So the only issue with this, we have all the certification and everything we need. Given the somewhat dry spring we've had. They're just having a bit of an issue with grass growing. But that said, the site is largely stabilized. There's just a few patches. There was a modification for relocation of the gas tank. There are some AC units, but they're outside of the 50-foot no-build. The stormwater system has been looked at and maintained for the year. There was no growing requirement on the plants within the stormwater system, but that said, they're alive and thriving. I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, just, I brought a photo too that shows the area that still needs a little bit more growth. They had put some dumpsters there. They moved them, there's some ruts. They've smoothed those out, but it still needs to grow in a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Probably next week. It'll look fine, or the week after.
Okay. Al? Questions?
No, I don't have any questions.
No questions.
All set.
Jack?
No questions.
All right, so we're gonna, so you're comfortable with the program, with the grass the way it is? Okay.
Everything else they've maintained, so I'm sure they'll want this to look nice as well.
I know the contract.
The seed's down and the mulch is there, so they intend to have grass.
All right. Motion?
Recommend issuing a COC and bond release for 242-1584, 250 Clark Street.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, this is GovCAM.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want that pick fee file?
So that's it, right? So next we have the enforcement orders?
Yep.
Okay.
So these are ratification of enforcement orders. They've been issued and they're being complied with, I guess, is the short of it. 1600 Osgood is at Ozzie Properties. The bus company used an excessive amount of sand this winter and then dumped it over the guardrail and onto the banking, where they then excavated it and took out most of the vegetation. So they're going to be doing some stabilization. They're installing erosion control by Friday. They've gotten me a plan. It's just a simple ratification and sign.
What was the recommendation in the enforcement order? What did you, what?
To install erosion control so that none of those areas erode down the stream bank.
Yeah.
To remove all the material. They've already swept the driveway and removed all the material, although they have yet to take it off the site, but they'll take care of that as well.
Okay.
And then to just throw some loam and seed. It's all invasives. It's going to come back in frag in no time, but while it's happening, I wanted them to get something down there.
Very good, thank you.
Should we have them put some signage?
And they're going to put signage, yes,
Okay.
about snow stockpiling, and they're going to do that in accordance with the management plan that they have for the entire property.
Okay. And the other one is 80 Sailway.
So that was just a revision of all the dates in his prior enforcement order, since it didn't get planted last summer. And granted, last summer was a very dry summer, but the requirement now is for him to get the plantings in by June 30th and monitor for the next year. So vote to ratify 1600, I guess, first.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And then 80
Unanimous.
Sailway.
Same motion.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's
And
unanimous.
then if you'll just continue the reg revisions to June 10th, because I will not be here on the 27th. I have a daughter graduating high school, and that's her honors night, award night.
Awesome.
You want the reg revisions continued?
To June 10th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Opposed? That's unanimous.
Okay, so we are not doing 172 Summer Street, because he did not get that in, so it's just the DPW one that we need to...
You want to hold
review.
on to these, Jen? So that we print them?
What's that?
Do you want to hold on to the summer ones?
Oh, yeah, we'll take those back.
So you have to reprint them?
Those from them, so we don't lose them.
Which one are we giving back?
Summer Street.
Summer Street.
1647?
Yeah.
D'Angelo is so...
Well, we didn't know if he was getting something in or email.
Neither did he.
He was trying to get me the plan in time, but it just didn't happen. Oh, and I just pulled out D'Angelo. special conditions. Condition 35 cites the restoration areas. They label them A, B, and C, and then have plantings that go in each. Their erosion control is silt sock with trench siltation fencing, silt sacks and catch basins within 100 feet. Did I miss the bond?
5,000.
Yep,
Number 48.
5,000 on the bond. They have stormwater continuing conditions and an O&M plan. Because they're close to the pond, I had the chain link fence around the station should probably be raised. Lots of turtles crossing in that area. 63, they'll have a stone construction entrance. No stockpiling. Oh, I guess, again, I don't think that the no salt provision probably applies there.
That's a good.
That's
I
probably
see
not a
what
good
shade
one,
it-
but, so, just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Was there anything on the removal of those two structures, the existing, there's two like circular structures, wells? Did we, I believe you called something out on that, Jack.
Yeah, I think they're leaving them in place, right?
Are they leaving them
I think they were gonna fill them, they're underneath the
fill 'em.
ground, they're gonna fill them and leave them.
in? So that's a drain and fill?
Right,
Yeah.
Got it. Got
but
it.
that's outlined in their order, I didn't need to cover that separately.
Okay. I couldn't remember if we had any, I remember a discussion about it, but I don't.
Any questions?
So, I guess it's as drafted unless anybody sees anything egregious.
Motion.
I move that we issue the order of conditions for 242-1650 as drafted.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
So the last is I need you to vote on the Riverview Street property that the commission has care, custody, and control of. They have found emerald ash borer, and they would like to girdle and fell the ash on the property. There's not a lot. It shouldn't quite look like what happened across from the China Blossom. But it's literally the only way they have to sort of contain. It attracts the borer there, and then they fell the trees and the larvae die within the trees. They'll also release the predatory beetle that they've released at, predatory wasp that they've released at Osgood Hill. Tried and tested, so no concerns about that. And the Board of Selectmen did approve that, so I'm just seeking your approval on your property.
So now we know where the killer bees went.
Well, predatory wasps.
Predatory wasps.
Do they
They're a
have
little
any
bitty wasp.
Do they have any adverse impact on human beings? Like, will
No,
they-
they don't bite.
They don't bite.
But they do, so there were originally 3 predatory species released to counteract the emerald ash borer. One of them has since been removed from the list of wasps to be used because it was predatory on a native beetle. The 2 that remain and the one that will be released here have been over long-term testing, because this is emerald ash borer is a much bigger problem in the mid-Atlantic and the North Michigan, Wisconsin, that area, than it is here, and these have been used for a decade or more out there with no ill effects. So,
Where else in the state are these?
Western Mass, far Western Mass, in the Berkshires, and I think they were just discovered up in another county just over the New Hampshire line as well. So,
And where did they come from?
Asia,
Asia.
The Emerald Isle.
right?
Not the Emerald Isle. Okay, and also, okay, but they don't, what, do they eat the larvae?
Any day now, dude.
This is very interesting to me.
The commission's having the Conservation Network is having a meeting, I think, like on May 27th or something, that if you'd like to attend. But otherwise, I'll get you the literature, because
Okay,
I get a lot of newspaper calls about this, and I don't.
Well, doesn't he the bug
Thank you.
master?
Guys, don't laugh at me.
Be the bug
Wasn't me,
master.
Deb, I wasn't doing any laughing.
He's just trying to catch his breath. How about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Well, you didn't vote about can we fell trees and release beetles?
What do you want?
Oh, yeah.
What kind of motion do you want? Lay it out.
You want us to
Conservation
deny?
Commission approval for these activities to occur on your property.
My
Care,
property?
custody, and control of the
Wait,
commission.
my property?
Your property.
Yeah.
So, so the property under the care, custody, and control of the Conservation Commission,
Correct.
located specifically where?
On Riverview Street, next to the GLSD pump station.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous.
Now, Deb, you can
Now,
adjourn.
can we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? That's unanimous.